Something small sits on nearly every lawyer's desk. It fits quietly in a pocket, yet it has the power to change someone's entire future. Courtrooms are full of dramatic things: arguments, evidence, testimony. But the object that often decides everything is surprisingly ordinary: a simple pen. If you watch lawyers carefully, you will notice something interesting. Almost every lawyer carries one. Always. Everywhere. It is not just habit. It is definitely not just convenience. In the world of law, a pen represents something deeper, represents the moment when thought becomes responsibility. Because in law, once something is written, it becomes real. This might sound obvious, but the psychology behind it is surprisingly powerful. Think about how we treat spoken words. Conversations disappear into memory. Promises can fade or change over time, but written words behave differently. They freeze a moment in time. They hold someone accountable. They transform ideas into decisions. In many ways, the legal system is simply a system of recorded thoughts. Laws are written, contracts are written, verdicts are written, and every one of those written words carries weight. That is why lawyers instinctively keep a pen close, not just to write, but to capture responsibility the moment it appears. History gives us an interesting perspective on this idea. Before modern courts existed, justice was often spoken. Village leaders would announce decisions out loud. Rulings depended heavily on memory and authority. But societies eventually realized something dangerous about spoken justice. Memory changes. People reinterpret conversations. Powerful voices can distort what was actually said. So civilizations began writing laws down. Ancient legal systems like Roman law and English common law relied heavily on written records. Once the law existed on paper, something changed psychologically. Justice no longer depended entirely on power. It depended on documentation. The pen quietly became a stabilizer of truth. Now imagine a courtroom scene. Quiet courtroom sits in tension. A defendant waits for the judge to speak. The lawyers have argued for hours. Evidence has been presented. Witnesses have testified. Everyone waits for the decision. The judge listens carefully. Then something subtle happens. The judge picks up a pen. Not a microphone, not a dramatic speech, just a pen. The courtroom becomes silent, because everyone understands what that moment means. The judge begins writing. A few short lines appear on paper. Those lines will soon determine someone's freedom, reputation, or future. The room watches carefully, because once those words are written, they will become the official record. And records carry power. This is where the psychology of justice becomes fascinating. Writing forces the brain to slow down. When we write something, we think more carefully. We organize thoughts. We choose precise words. Lawyers understand this deeply. That is why they constantly take notes. Not just to remember facts, but to sharpen thinking. Writing transforms scattered thoughts into structured arguments. It forces clarity. And clarity is the oxygen of justice. A vague argument rarely wins a case, but a clear, written argument can shape how judges think. This is also why legal writing is treated almost like an art form. A well-written brief can influence how a judge interprets the entire case. One sentence can redirect an argument. One carefully chosen phrase can change the interpretation of a law. The pen becomes a tool of intellectual precision. But the symbolism goes even deeper. A pen represents accountability. In law, signing your name is not a casual action. When a lawyer signs a document, they are attaching their professional reputation to it. When a judge signs an order, the legal system stands behind it. When a contract is signed, people are legally bound to their promises. That tiny signature holds enormous psychological weight, because writing something down signals commitment, says I stand behind these words. This is why the phrase "put it in writing" carries so much authority. Spoken promises can feel flexible. Written promises feel permanent. It's the moment ink touches paper, responsibility becomes visible. Even today, in a digital world full of screens and keyboards, lawyers still value pens. Many attorneys carry high-quality pens almost like personal tools. Some even develop emotional attachment to them. It may sound strange, but psychologically, the pen becomes a symbol of professional identity. It represents preparedness. It represents precision. It represents the readiness to capture important moments before they disappear. Because in law, important moments appear suddenly. A witness might say something critical. An opposing lawyer might reveal a contradiction. A judge might make an unexpected observation. If it is not written down immediately, it can vanish. And in a courtroom, missed details can change outcomes. So the pen becomes a quiet guardian of attention. But there is another layer that makes this even more interesting. Writing creates psychological ownership. When you write something yourself, your brain treats it differently. It becomes your thought, your responsibility. your claim. This is why handwritten notes often feel more powerful than typed text. The physical act of writing connects the mind to the decision. Justice ultimately depends on responsible decisions. Think about the most powerful legal documents in history: the Constitution, landmark court rulings, civil rights legislation. All of them began as written words. Ideas transformed into ink, and ink transformed into law. That is the hidden power behind something as ordinary as a pen. It turns ideas into consequences. It turns arguments into records. And it turns decisions into justice. The next time you see a lawyer holding a pen, look at it differently. It is not just a writing tool. It is a symbol of intellectual discipline, a reminder that words carry weight, and a quiet instrument that transforms thought into accountability. Because justice does not begin with a gavel, it begins with a sentence, written carefully, signed responsibly, and remembered permanently. So here's a question worth thinking about. If a few written words can change someone's life, how much power do the words we write every day really hold? If you enjoyed this exploration, you will love the next video. We will uncover another surprising psychological truth about ideas, power, and human thinking. So make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Pen Effect, and join this growing community of curious minds. And until the next video, keep questioning the ordinary.